crafting friends, this is Jessica with Tiny Worlds of Wonder, and today I'm here for a coloring video. Now if you're a diamond painter, don't worry, we're going to be doing diamond paintings all the time here on Tiny Worlds of Wonder. So if coloring is not your thing, check back in the next video. We'll be back to diamond painting. But I had a request from a viewer after I did my coloring page works in progress. It's been a few months back now, I believe, to do a short tutorial on how to do this kind of bokeh background that I did on this page in Imagimorphia. So I'm going to show you how I completed this background section today in case you want to try this on some of your coloring pages. And if you'd like to check out that previous video of my coloring works in progress, I'll put a link up in the cards so you can find that really easily. So what I want to do now is change my camera angle just a little bit. I'm going to bring you down a little bit closer to a blank piece of paper, and we'll do a little coloring together today, and I'll show you how I did this. All right, I've got you zoomed in really close to my desk here. Hopefully I'll be able to keep everything in frame since I'm so close. But I'm going to be using my Prismacolor pencils for this technique, and I have a pretty large set. I have the 132 set of Prismacolors. My daughter is an artist, and so we happen to have a lot of things laying around our house as far as art supplies go. If you don't have as many shades of green as I'm about to use here, you can always creatively blend if you just have 2 or 3 colors to get a little more variation in your colors. But I'm going to be using 5 colors for this. I'm going to be using PC 989, and I'll go ahead and put these on the screen, so if you can't catch them here while they're going by, you won't need to worry too much. PC 1089, PC 1096, PC 912, and PC 908. Now, any shades of green going from lightest to darkest will work for this. You're just going to get a slightly different shade of green, so that's going to be lovely as well. So what I'm going to do to start out here is take my very lightest color, which in this case is the PC 1089, and what I did on my background was create basically just by sketching out some of my little bursts of light. So these are going to be the white spots in my design, and I'm just going to very lightly, and I'm doing it so lightly I don't know if you'll even be able to see it, but very lightly trace or draw some small circles. And this can be very random when you're doing this on your coloring page. Okay? There's no rhyme or reason to this. What we're really trying to do is create the effect of light and dark fading out of focus. So that's how I started. Just with some small circles of color. I'll check and make sure I've got you in frame there. Okay, then I'm going to start layering up basically with my brighter shades of green. This 1089 is a really pastel shade of green, so I think I really just use that to draw my circles in. And then I'm going to come in with this really bright green. And I've found that the key to Prismas is to do a lot of light layers. And I really have a love-hate relationship with Prismacolor pencils. They break very easily when you try to sharpen them because the wax is so soft, but they really do have some lovely blending capabilities as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just lay in, and I'm going to go kind of around my, if I was doing this whole area, I would probably go all around my bright circles with this light color. In some areas going thicker and coming out a little further away, and in some areas sticking pretty close to my trace line or my drawn line, just so it looks like I have a little burst of light going on around these sort of orbs of light. And then in some areas I'm going to bring out that yellow-green just a little bit further. Okay, then what I'm going to do next is grab my next lightest color and just start to very lightly layer in some of that green. And working in small circles works well for me. We're just going to lay in color kind of in random places. I'm not going to make this too planned out. I'm just going to try to create the effect that I have kind of out of focus foliage or something going on in my design. Okay, so in some places I might connect that between the dots, and other places are my orbs. In other places I'm just going to leave some white spaces. And then I'm going to come in with my next color. And this is just my base layer. So this is just my very first layer of color. It's not going to be perfectly flat. It's not going to be perfectly blended. And I don't need it to be yet. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. Okay, and then I'm just going to color along the edges of the last color that I did. So I'm going to darken some areas coming out from that sort of apple green I created in the last step. Okay, and you can see we're getting kind of a fade of different colors coming out around. I'm going to go back one step and just fill in a little more of this area around this section of my orb here. Just so you guys can see a little more of the effect when I'm done. Okay. Come back in with my third darkest green. This is the 1096. And really sort of the less planned you can make the look of this, the better it's going to work. And then I'm kind of coming with my darkest green. So this is the 908. So basically I've layered all the way from, I drew my light green circles with the 1089, and then I started the actual filling in process with the 989, the chartreuse, and then worked out with apple green 912, then darkened a little bit with this Kelly green 1096, and now I'm on to my dark green 908. So I'm just progressively getting darker as we go. Okay, so I'm going to go right along the edge of my darkest color here. And work in some of that dark green. Okay, I actually want to give you guys a little bit more pattern here. So I'm going to come back in with my really lime sort of yellow green here and just fill in a little bit more of the circle using the exact same steps that I did before. And I found here that either having my pencils really sharp or so that they have sort of a flattened, one flattened edge kind of helps actually to get a little bit better blend. So I try to use that worn side of my pencil where you get a little bit of a flat edge there. It actually blends my colors a little bit better. Okay, so I've got kind of a basic layout. Now, if I was doing a large area of this, I of course would extend my edges out, and I wouldn't make a perfect circle here in any kind of shape. I would make this cover the whole background, but obviously we won't have time to do an area that large together. So I'm just going to show you kind of a little microcosm of the technique here. Okay, now I'm going to go back in with my lightest color again, and I'm going to start blending out colors even more. So I'm going to start working all of those colors together. And I'm going to work from lightest to darkest again. Now you can see if I had stopped here, I wouldn't have gotten a very good blend and I wouldn't have the effect that I want. So the secret with this sometimes is to just keep going, keep layering, keep blending until you get the effect that you really want. Okay, I'm going to add some more of my apple green. I'm going to go over the areas I went over with this color before. Then I'm also just going to sneak over into some of the areas where I put some of the darker pencil, just to start blending things together a little bit here. So I can always darken things up. Just working in small circles with a pretty light touch. Okay, I'm going to go on to my next darkest color. Now I'm not going to go over whole areas with this color because I don't want every part of my design to be this dark, but I will work into some of those areas in between where I laid this pencil color originally. I think the color of, or the sound of pencils on paper is a relaxing sound. Okay, now I'll come back in with my darkest color. I'll darken up the darkest areas. Now I found with my coloring that the pictures that turn out the very best, in my own opinion, the ones that I like the very best, are the ones that have a lot of contrast. So the ones where I'm not afraid to do some sections that are really dark or maybe even black, because it just adds such a level of depth and interest to a piece to have enough contrast. If you look at your environment and sort of squint your eyes a little bit so you can get a little less saturation, you can sometimes tell that our actual environment that we live in has a lot of contrast. That's what makes landscapes and photographs so dramatic, so that we have a big difference between our light and dark shades. And I think it works the same with art or with coloring. Okay, I'm going back in again with my lightest color. So that was 2 layers. And I'm starting to get a little blending going on here. And I'm going to come back in around the edges of my orb of light and just sort of define that a little bit. Pull out some of that yellow color. Into my surrounding areas. So it looks like these are like little fireflies or bursts of sunlight or something. My personal aesthetic is pretty bright, so I have noticed that I color a lot of my pages quite bright. If that's a little less your style, you could choose a lightest shade, more like this pastel green that's a little less yellow, and the effect there will be just a little bit less sunny, a little bit less bright. Okay, and you can see in some places I didn't save this bright yellow color just for my orbs. I actually pulled some of the yellow into kind of leafy areas of the background, so that it looks like light is shining through some of the foliage too. Okay, I'm going to go back in predictably with my apple green and start blending the edges of those colors. And I'm still just using small light circles. I almost never use blender pencils or anything like that in my coloring. I find that if I'm working on my blending and adding colors slowly and layering them up, that I almost never need that because they blend themselves without me really having to do much of anything else. Okay, I go back in again with my Kelly green. So you can see I'm always doing my repetitions from light to dark and just continuing to layer those colors from light to dark over and over and over again. And that's when I get the beautiful blending between the colors. Okay. I'm going to go back in with my darkest green, and this time, because I'm starting to get a blend here, I'm going to go in and add quite a lot of my darkest shade. I'm not going to be too timid with it this time. I'm still doing fairly light circles, but maybe just a tiny bit more pressure now so you can really see some of that color coming out. This almost looks like we have a little definition of a leaf there somehow, but it's all just completely random. Okay, and now that I'm getting pretty close to my last layer of color, I've saturated this paper quite a bit. I'm actually going to come back and work backwards now. So I'm going to go to my next darkest color, which was the Kelly green. And I'm going to blend out from the edges of those really dark sections I made, just to kind of get a last final blending on my color. So, did that background take a long time? Yes and no. I sort of worked on it in short days, little section in different bursts of time, and it was really enjoyable to do, actually. I found it much less stressful in a way than the picture itself. Now I'm coming back in with my apple green, doing a little firmer pressure now definitely on this last layer, but not like scribbling, just a little bit more weight in the hand. And you can see we're getting a nice fade there between our colors. Okay, now I'm going to come back in with my yellow green. And your lightest color is always sort of the key to your blending. If you extend that lightest color into your dark color, it's actually going to smear the wax of your dark color just a little bit and make those colors look like they belong together. So I'm just going to keep working that color, the lightest color, into my saturated paper, really until I get the effect that I want. Now if I didn't want to change the color to quite such a yellow hue, like I said, what I could do is actually take more of a pastel shade and blend with that. It would change just a little bit of the tone of my color, but make it a little bit less sunny yellow and still give me that effect of blending everything together. You can also do this with a white pencil, but I find if I do it with a white pencil, sometimes that I can actually lighten my dark colors too much, a little bit more than I want to. So sometimes I just take my lightest shade and use that to kind of blend everything together the way I want it. Okay, so that's more or less the process of doing a bokeh background. And of course you can really do this with any color. I chose to do mine in green because I was doing leaves. But if you look around in nature or in photographs, you can see examples of these kinds of faded patterns everywhere. So in flowers and just in the backgrounds of portraits, in all kinds of shades. So it is a useful technique to know, just to create a background that's a little bit out of focus, a little bit diffuse, and really pretty. All right, guys, so that's how I created my bokeh background on this page in Imagimorphia. I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. I never really ask people to like and subscribe my videos. I figure if you want to, you will. So maybe this is the first time that I'll ask you. If you've enjoyed the content on the channel, if you visited before, or if you're new, I would love to have you as a subscriber, or always just as a guest. As I always say here on Tiny Worlds of Wonder, spread some joy wherever you are today, and I will catch you next time. Bye.